rocking and rolling our ship on the sea, rocking and rolling with you and with me. Wind, come and blow us gently along. Mermaids, come guide us and sing us this song. Still waters run deep. Mother of the fairy tale, take me by your silver hand, sail me in your silver boat, sail me silently afloat. Mother of the fairy tale, take me to your shining land. Once, there was a kind, old grandmother, and she lived in a cozy house. And right outside her door was a large sunny meadow, where she had grown a beautiful garden. Grandmother loved to work in her garden more than she loved doing anything else in the world. Every morning, she would walk outside to see the new green shoots that were poking through the earth. As it was springtime, many bulbs had already blossomed. Sweet crocuses, tiny grape hyacinth, and big daffodils were blooming. And on this morning, when she went outside into her garden, she saw that the first tulips had blossomed. Oh, tulips! How grandmother loved the tulips. She got to work in her garden, pulling out all the weeds and watering the new green seedlings. She worked here and there, all over. The sun was shining warmly on her garden. The birds were singing up in the trees. Some were already singing to their new little babies in their nests. Sometimes grandmother would sit on a stump in the middle of her garden and sing to her flowers. Grow, 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 up to the sun, up to the sun, grow, grow, grow. At the end of the day, after she had done all of her work, she would go back into her house and have a nice supper of soup and good bread and go to sleep. Grandmother didn't know that the fairies had been watching her. They knew how well she tended her garden and how she took care of the earth. The fairies were all coming right by her house that night. For at the far end of the meadow, there grew a circle of beautiful, tall trees. And in the middle of the circle, there was a ring of mushrooms growing, a fairy ring. And when the moon was full, the fairies all gathered to dance in the fairy ring. And so it was that night that the moon was full. And a sweet mother fairy flew into grandmother's garden with her tiny little baby. She knew how well grandmother took care of her garden, and she knew grandmother was kind and good. So she placed her little baby into one of grandmother's tulips like a little cradle. Then she gave her baby a sweet fairy kiss and flew off into the night. She knew her baby would be safe in the cradle in grandmother's garden. Sometimes grandmother liked to come out into her garden at night. Especially on the full moon, she liked to see what her garden looked like in the moonlight. She would sit on her stump and smell the sweet night garden smells. And on that night, as she was sitting, she heard a soft, tinkling music. What beautiful music is this, she thought. She listened here and listened there. She soon found that the music was coming from her tulip. She peeked inside, and what did she see but a baby fairy? Oh, how surprised she was. The fairy mother must have brought her baby here to sleep while she went dancing in the full moon fairy ring. Grandmother knew this because grandmothers know such things. The twinkling music was the sound of the baby crying. So grandmother began to gently rock the tulip like a little cradle and sing a lullaby to the baby. Sleep, fairy baby, toot, toot, toot. Shooting stars shall shine on you. Silver moon is glowing bright, guarding you all through the night. As grandmother rocked the tulip cradle and sang, the baby soon fell back asleep. It's okay, little fairy, grandmother whispered. You're safe here. She didn't go back inside. She wanted to make sure the fairy mother came back and found her baby. So she sat quietly in her garden in the moonlight and waited. It wasn't long before the fairy mother returned. She scooped up her baby out of the cradle, and then she flew around grandmother, nodding a thank you to her before she flew into the night. Happily, grandmother went inside her house for the night's rest. She never saw another fairy in her tulips again, although sometimes she would peek in and check. But her garden became the most beautiful in all the land because she took such good care of it, and because she enjoyed it every day. And on nights when the moon is full, she still goes out and sits in her garden. And sometimes she can hear the faint sounds of music as the fairies dance in the fairy ring. Sail away, silver boat, on the waters gently float, through the magic moonlit veil, without an oar, without a sail. Sail away, sail away. Here is the moon, so big and round, that shines on the boat that is homeward bound, back to the harbor, safe and sound, from its sail on the silvery sea.